Still ain't
Recording.
covered. Right.
That's what I've been asking.
Paul eating them all.
Right, let's move on because we've plenty to get through. So we'll start off with Ian, and as most of us know, Ian's good friend was Alan Ashcroft, the British Lions rugby player. Not just a friend to Ian, but a mentor, lots of things. So, Ian.
Thanks, mate. It's nice of you to put it that way. I'd like to think so. I'm not sure he would, but there you go. And first of all, I would like to thank Paul the Biscuit and John through the WhatsApp group notified me of his death. I hadn't heard, nor had my sister who lives in the area still. And Paul's also sent a bit of an obituary that he found. I don't know where you found it, Paul, but I'm going to use it if I may, just to stick to time.
It was in the Times on Saturday.
Well, it's a nice piece, and there's some facts there that I'll embellish upon that I didn't know at the time. But Alan Ashcroft was England, well, he was Waterloo, Lancashire, Northwest Counties, England and British Lion rugby player who played a key role in the Five Nations title winning teams of 1957 and 58. And I mentioned him at Crystal Peaks because when what was my first ever sporting memory, it was actually the day I had my wisdom teeth taken out when I was about 7 years of age, feeling miserable, feeling miserable for myself. My father just threw me on the couch and said, watch the England match. And I watched my then art master playing an absolute blinder. He was picked for the England team a year after switching to the number 8 position. And he played his debut exactly 65 days to the day before he died. He died on the 26th of January this year, and he played his debut on 26th of January 1956. So there's a quirk of fate, if I might put it that way. As an England trialist in the heyday of amateurism, Alan Ashcroft was still entitled to receive expenses to cover the journey to and from Twickenham. At least he was until a bowler-hatted Jobsworth, it doesn't say Jobsworth, rugby union official was informed that his mode of transport had been by submarine from Scotland and up the River Thames. The impecunious young man was sent on his way without the customary handful of shillings. Ashcroft at the time was doing his national service with the RAF, a fact I never knew, given I'd joined the RAF, and had been stationed on the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal. When you are attached, even as a naval personnel, to a Navy station, you're actually put on the complement, they call it, of a ship. In this case, he may have been on a ground tour, but he was actually attached to HMS Ark Royal. But you can imagine the wheeler dealing when he was told he was going for an England trial, and the Admiral said, "Oh, we must go by submarine, oh boy." Yeah. He was permitted to go aboard the submarine and arrived at Twickenham with the service's duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Fortunately, he made a different kind of impression on the pitch and was selected for the fixture against Wales in the Five Nations Championship in 1956. And Glenn Maguire has done a podcast of my piece on Alan Ashcroft where I actually mentioned he played in that debut against the great Cliff Morgan, Gareth Owen of Gary Owen Up and Under fame, with Dickie Jeeps, a guy called Marks, and against his number 8 opponent was a chap called Leighton Jenkins. And I never found out until I've joined the Sporting Memory Group 3 years ago that he played against Leighton Jenkins, because squadron leader Leighton Jenkins was the college physical education officer when I joined the RAF College some years later. So another quirk of fate. He played in all of 4 of England's matches that year and was in their championship winning teams of 1957 and 58. When he was chosen for the British and Irish Lions tour of Australia, New Zealand and Canada, I believe that was an extended tour. I don't think they originally intended to go to Canada because we were expecting him back at school in the summer months, but he didn't come back until the autumn term. But Ashcroft travelled by ship on what was termed the longest tour, and was the final such journey to be undertaken by sea, lasting as it did from May to September. So you can imagine that's a long time away from his primary job. The length of time away from home was still more impactful given he was newly married and had just started his first job as an art teacher at Liverpool College, which was my school. On this tour, he received expenses, but nothing more. Liverpool College, aware of the kudos of having a British Lion on its staff, did not deduct his salary while he was on the other side of the world. He rewarded the college by remaining there until retirement, which I've since found out was for a solid 30 years. Unlike the majority of the England colleagues, Alan Ashcroft came from a humble background. Born in 1930, he was the son of Ernest, a coal miner turned window cleaner, and Alan was to ascribe his fitness to assisting him in climbing up and down ladders. That gels with me because Alan Ashcroft was a St Helens man, and I think, John, you know the area with Prescott Cables, BIC.
Yeah, Johnny Quinn.
Well, I used to travel with my dad by car to Rain Hill from Liverpool through Huyton, and we passed this Cronton colliery where his dad probably worked. And it always worried me because this is shortly after Aberfan and the Gulf school. And there was this, it was like a mountain, it was like a volcano of slurry. And I said, get past it quick, Dad, get past it quick. But there seemed to be some form of railway track about halfway up. And all you could see all the trucks there. But it used to frighten me to death going past it. You know, I was willing to get the car past. But that's where his dad worked. His mother, Margaret, née Pender, a relative of the world middleweight champion boxer Paul Pender.
Paul Pender.
Yeah, that's where Alan Ashcroft got his good looks from. Was of Irish descent. He had these high cheekbones. All these rugby players seem to. Was of Irish descent, and he grew up in a 2-bedroom house in St Helens, Lancashire, sharing one of these with his 2 brothers. Ashcroft won art scholarships to Cowley Grammar School. Cowley, I've told you guys about where you were caned if you missed a tackle. And then Liverpool University, where he took a master's degree. He was to win a prize as the city's Artist of the Year. He was a brilliant artist. I remember he had us for double art. He made us on a lovely summer day sit in the gardens of the headmaster to draw the headmaster's lodge.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, yeah.
Ian, let me just have a quick interlude here. Sally, who have you got with you?
It's my grandson, Freddie. Wave.
Hello, Freddie.
Freddie.
And he loves football. And he loves football. But his mum and dad keep putting him in a United shirt, which does not make him
Yeah.
No wonder he looks miserable.
He's going to have a lovely life.
Sorry for interrupting.
All right. That's
Many disappointments along the way.
A bit of thick and a lot of thin.
He's going to play free. Hey?
Right. Okay. Sorry about that. Ian.
all right. I'm just telling you about, he was a brilliant artist, and he had us in front of the lodge doing it. And I had my pencil out. He taught us this technique. I can't do it in front of the laptop, but you put your arm right out with the pencil vertical in it, and you dimension everything by the thumb going up and down the pencil. So you translate it to the sheet you were drawing on. So if the roof was that high, you know, you measure that and da-da-da. Anyway, I thought I'd done a cracking job. This guy came up to me, he said, "Oh, Stu," because we were always called by our surnames, Steward. So he called me Stu. "Stu, what have you done? That is awful." And just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he transformed it into a magnificent picture. Literally 30 seconds, totally changed the dimension perspective of it. Absolutely brilliant artist. Growing up in St Helens meant that he could well have taken up a lucrative career playing rugby league. Indeed, he was offered more than £4,000 to join his own hometown club, St Helens, considerably more than the value of his parents' house, but was not tempted. Instead, he opted for rugby union and joined St Helens Rugby Union Club, where with his robust frame and large hands to the fore, he played in the second row. My father used to say of him, like Ray French, we'll talk about later, hands like hams. He was one of the few guys I knew who could pick up a rugby ball up in one hand and make it look like a billiard ball. He was just enormous. His preference was to be at number 8, what they call the heft of the scrum, and hence he moved to Waterloo near Liverpool. It's actually Crosby, Blundell Sands. Within 12 months, he was playing for England. He was an enormous man. My parents used to go to parents' evening, which was a total waste of time because they used to come back having to take antidepressants because of what they told them about me. But my dad said to me one day, "Your mum bumped into Alan Ashcroft last night. She was out for 30 seconds. Literally, she come round the corner, collided with him. He never felt the thing, and she bounced off. My father was there groveling on the floor trying to lift my mother up." But there you go. In one trial match at Twickenham, his old school friend and fellow international Ray French, who played for St Helens, asked him how to combat the 6'5" David Marks, who was outpowering him in the line-out. Hit him as he is jumping was Ashcroft's profound advice, and in an era preceding the prying televisual eye. Ashcroft, nicknamed Neddy, that's not true. He was nicknamed Ned or Big A at school. Nicknamed Neddy after a character in the Goons. I don't understand the reference to that at all. Played in another title-winning England team in 1958 and won his 16th and final cap against Scotland the next year. That was the game I watched, having had my wisdom teeth taken out. After returning home from the Lions tour, he found he was too exhausted to start another season. In New Zealand, he had been coshed over the head and had his bag containing an all-black shirt stolen, although in due course he was to resume club rugby. He must have got that bag back because he came to school with a duffel bag. They were popular in those days, and it had BLRUT on it, team, signifying British Lions and Ireland's rugby union touring team, I think it was. Took me ages to work that out. He played on until he was in his 50s, finishing in Waterloo's 6th 15. And it doesn't say here, but he was also playing for a club called Sefton. You'll have heard me mention Sefton last week as the notorious for the highest rate of COVID in this country. In his international career, he scored 1 try and distinguished contemporaries Tony O'Reilly, Dickie Jeeps, Jeff Butterfield, and Ray Prosser became his lifelong friends. Ashcroft was open-minded about the game, turning professional, and he continued to watch Waterloo, for whom his sons Paul and Jason and his grandson Tom were to play. Paul played briefly in the same team as his father. Ashcroft ran Liverpool College's first 15 on their pitch abutting Penny Lane of Beatles fame, and became a fellow of the Liverpool College of Art, where another John Lennon had studied. Ashcroft's talents extended to playing the guitar, but he was no George Harrison, noted his son Jason. I can tell you he wasn't a great rugby coach, although he picked me to play, but he did inspire me to play the game, and I owe a lot to him. But I remember a couple of things he told me. One of them was when we'd had a particularly exhausting game. We came off absolutely washed out, and he gave us all a cup of sweet tea and said, "There you are, lads. All the calories you've expended in that game are in that cup of sweet tea," which technically was a fact. I played with him and against him. I played with him at Sefton and against him, he picked me for Waterloo Colts in an invitational side against Waterloo Fit. Him and Dickie Greenwood, England captain and British Lion, Eric Lyon, who played for Lancashire, and a lot of other names. So a bit like Chris in his cricket, I was privileged to get to a standard that was not particularly high, but to play with some of the greats, I would say world greats. And that does a great deal for one's ego, I can tell you. It certainly inspired me. And I got into the RAF College really because of my sports achievements and largely due to Alan Ashcroft's help. His own art, oils and watercolors, were never displayed, sold or given to families and friends. He was just very private and incredibly modest, which was probably his most endearing feature, said Jason. There was no rugby memorabilia in his house. He wore his England shirts around the garden until they'd become full of holes and were thrown in the bin. That's true. I remember him in his Lancashire jersey, which is sort of very thin red and white stripes. And he just bought this goat called Lulu, a nanny goat, and put it in the field. And he had this trick, he had a big deep voice, Lulu, come here. And Lulu, this nanny goat, come bounding and throw itself at Ashcroft. And he just catch the goat in his arms. This is Lulu. He was quite an amazing colossus of a man. Ashcroft married Patricia Ann Patsy Whitwell, who worked with him in their garden business at Ormskirk, 14 miles outside Liverpool. She predeceased him in 2013. He is survived by their children, Debbie, a florist, Paul, a property developer, and Jason, who owns a chain of children's nurseries. In 2018, this is interesting, 2018, when he was 88 and had lost both legs by then through diabetes, Ashcroft became one of the oldest British Lions to be presented with the ceremonial cap. It meant even more to him because this was presented at a special Waterloo Club lunch by his old friend, Great Britain St Helens rugby league player, Ray French. Alan Ashcroft, rugby player and schoolmaster, was born on August the 21st, 1930. He died of pneumonia and COVID-19, just like Colonel Tom, on January the 26th, 2021, aged 90. He was a true inspiration to me, guys. And Chris, when you talk about Everton Weeks and all the other guys, Derek Randall, this is my Derek Randall.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
That, yeah.
All right, that's
Well
brilliant.
done.
Well done.
Good account. Good account, mate.
Leave
Well done.
now.
Sorry, Sal.
I'm going to have to leave now because I've got my grandson here. So, but it's been lovely to see you all, and I'll let you.
See ya.
Nice, I've seen you.
Sally,
Okay.
just before you go, Sally,
Yeah.
what are you moving to Bury for?
Well, we're managing a site, another site there. So
What?
so
What,
yeah.
what kind of site?
Caravan and Motorhome Club still, you know, with the touring site.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and then but we're doing we're down in South Wales next week because we're doing a short contract down there as well. So, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
Anyway, see you.
Lovely to have seen you.
Yeah, I'll
All
see
the
you.
best, Sally. All the
Yeah.
best.
Bye.
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 Right.
That was
Okay,
a nice surprise, wasn't it?
it was.
Yeah. Nice.
Right, we'll move swiftly on now to Chris and a few facts and figures and quotes and what have you about that fantastic cricketer and fellow Blade, Joe Root.
I thought you would mention. That's to spoil it.
I won't
That's
mention.
the-
I won't mention that too many times, but it will
Can't
come in.
resist it.
Just very quickly to Lol. Lol, thanks for your research on Ezra Mosley.
Yeah.
Mentioning the sad passing. This is a terrible thing that's happened in Barbados. This is a very fit, totally respected former West Indian player, and he's been knocked off a bike and killed on the island's only motorway. And he was the reason I say thank you is my late dad was such a friend of Ezra's. They spent so much time together, and Ezra Mosley was a special man. So I just wanted to say that. thank you, Lol, for mentioning Ezra Mosley. Rest in
You're
peace.
welcome.
Okay, I'm going to start with this morning and then go back, because I think that's what the guys may find the most interesting. I contacted Matthew Root this morning about 8:30 as England won. And I told him that I'm doing this presentation to you all and to the group. And would he be kind enough to give me a comment or a quote? And I'm going to just read what he's said to me, because I think as a small group of people, you know, it's a very nice thing for him to send. And his comments were, having seen England and his son just win fabulously, just put, it started with fabulous win. One of the best away test victories of all time. And he said the toss was crucial, but having said that, very well done to England. He then went on to say to me, he calls Alistair Cook Cookie, you understand that. So Cookie has proven himself as a Channel 4 commentator this week to be a class above less contemporaneously out of touch journalists who have been critical of Joe's. And he's put to me, I like my son's comment last night when he was asked about a lack of an early declaration. And Joe said, I know what I'm doing. Nobody has spent as much time as me on that wicket. And
Good one.
that's a nice way of pushing back certain ill-advised comment. So that's to all of you from Matt. And Keith's suggestion is I asked Matt if he'd like to join us for one of these, and I think Matt might well do that, and I think he'd be an incredibly interesting guest. So I'll try.
Yeah, just to
Okay.
make it clear, Matt is
Matt,
Joe's dad.
Joe's dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Keith asked me a few days ago, based on what was happening in India, to just try and do a few bits on Joe. Keith asked me because he knows that I know the Root family from cricket of things, and I have met Joe on quite a few occasions. So I'm going to give you a few stats, but I'm also going to let you into a couple of little incidents and things that show you what the family's like. The first time I ever saw Joe Root with a bat, he was at a match that his dad and I were playing against each other. My brother, myself were against Matt, who was playing locally. Joe Root was on the boundary line. I remember him, he was about 8 or 9, very, very blonde, and he spent the entire afternoon batting on the boundary line with his dad's gloves on. And at the tea interval, I can remember him just plaguing Matt to just come and bowl at me, Dad. Come. So at that age, he was absolutely besotted with playing cricket. And even then you could see that he was way above, an 8-year-old sort of thing. Moving forward, I met up with Matt and his wife, Helen, Joe, and Joe's younger brother, Billy, who currently plays for Glamorgan, and also Joe's fantastic granddad, Don. They were all in South Africa. We were all in South Africa to watch the cricket in December 2004. And very kindly, they invited me to join them on quite a few sightseeing trips around the test match in Cape Town. And I had the honour to bowl at Joe Root, who is now 13, under the very hot sunshine of Camps Bay, which is just underneath sort of Table Mountain, just to give Matt a rest. And I was hit many times into the sea by this lad. And I just thought to myself, it was hilariously funny. And I thought to myself, I won't be the only tiring bowler to suffer at this lad's hands. And he's going to surely play at an extremely high level. You don't know at that age how high. I was moving forward into 2011. Saw Joe get his maiden 100 for Yorkshire against Sussex. It was sublime. And again, you just said to me, I said to myself, wow, he's got to this level, but he's just going to go on from here. Anyone like to guess where that century for Yorkshire was made? His maiden
Scarborough.
century.
Scarborough.
Scarborough. Colin, correct. North Marine Road at Scarborough. In 2014, I was at the Trent Bridge ground for the final day of the key championship match of the season, and I saw Yorkshire beat Notts by an innings and 152 runs to win the title for the first time since 2001. And Joe was the very proud Yorkshire captain on that day. And did he enjoy it? But question, lads, why was he the captain at Trent Bridge on that day?
The captain was suspended, wasn't he?
Paul, absolutely right. Can you remember the captain's name? He's still
Yes.
involved.
Yes, but no.
It's Gale, Andrew Gale. Andrew Gale was serving a 2-match ban under ECB disciplinary procedures, and having played for Yorkshire all his career, wasn't allowed to play, and he wasn't even allowed to pick the trophy up, which Joe
That's right.
did as well.
Yeah.
Joe made his debut for England, cap 655, in 2012 in India, which is quite interesting. And he scored his maiden Test century at Headingley a year later against New Zealand. Anyone tell me what was particularly unique about his maiden Test century at Headingley? It was a unique thing. It's never been done before. Shall I tell
Was
you?
he one of the youngest?
No, although
Get a
it would be.
boundary.
It would be.
Score a boundary.
No, I haven't got that detail, but I would have thought he would have scored. No, he was the first Yorkshireman to score their first Test 100 at Headingley, which I would never have thought that. You'd have thought that, Hutton would have done it or something like that. But no, Joe was the first Yorkshireman to get his first 100 in a Test match at Headingley. Well, moving forward to 2015, Joe scored a brilliant century in the first Test of the Ashes, and he was named man of the match for it. He got 134, and then in the fourth Test at Trent Bridge, which I was there, he caught 3 catches off Stuart Broad on that amazing first morning when Australia were bowled out for 60.
Yeah, I was there as well.
Right, Colin. Right, it was a massive day.
First 2 days.
First 2 days, yeah. I sat near a chap, and he came in late, and he sat down, and he said, "God, the scoring's a bit slow this morning, isn't it?" And England were about 30 for none. And I said, "Slow scoring?" Yeah, he went, "England, I mean, this is a snail's pace." I said, "You have missed the entire Australian first innings, you know." And he didn't realise Australia had been and gone. England were 30 for none. Anyway,
He was late though, wasn't he?
don't be late. Don't be late.
Yeah.
Well, Joe scored his 8th century for England in that match. He finished the top scorer in the Ashes. What a great picture of the 2 lads.
Oh,
That's a great picture. That would be Billy on the left and Joe batting, I think.
you're right.
It's
Amazing.
like David Gower.
Yeah, he did it. Yeah. He finished the series as the world's #1 batsman in the ICC rankings. He was also named in the World Test 11 for his efforts in 2001. There's Matt on the left, Joe obviously in the middle, and Billy on the right. It looks as if they're off to Joe's wedding, I would think that is. In 2016, Joe Root, playing against Pakistan, got his highest Test score so far, 254. He replaced Cook as England's captain in 2017 Don, his granddad, is on the extreme left of that photograph. Never misses a match. Quickly digress. Joe, obviously the glamour is with Joe, but Billy's a brilliant player. And Billy was playing for Notts at Scarborough a few years ago, a younger lad, and he was in the squad, and his granddad went all the way to Scarborough to support Billy. Okay. And Billy was made 12th man and didn't actually play. And I sat with Don, and Don watched the whole match and just was there to support Billy Root. And I thought, wow, granddad, that's a fantastic effort. So the 1000th test match that England played was against India. It was in 2018. And I went to the match. It was a historic event. And I managed to get, that was very, very difficult. I managed to get the program, managed to get the program, for that match, which was extremely rare because they were all bought up. I also met Don and Matt at the match, and I managed then to get both skippers' autographs on the program. I've got Joe Root and Coley, which is, I would imagine, is quite rare, and that's a big item to have got with their help. In that program, Joe is named in the ECB's greatest ever England test match team. Just as a bit of a laugh, can you name any of the other players that the ECB put in the greatest ever England test match team? Just for a laugh. Anyone?
Jimmy Anderson. Jimmy Anderson.
Anderson is in it, yes.
Len Hutton.
Wally Hammond.
Len Hutton is in it, yeah.
Wally Hammond.
Wally Hammond is in the second team.
Fred Truman.
Truman's in the first team, yeah.
Good.
Brian Statham.
Brian Statham's also in the second team.
Baker.
Jim Laker.
Jim Laker's in the second team.
Oh,
Titmus.
Jeff Boycott.
Who is the wicket? Jim Park.
But Boyks is in the second team.
Alex
Definitely
Stewart.
Verity.
Alex Stewart.
Alex Stewart's in the second team.
Alistair
It's
Cook.
hell of a side, I'll tell you. It's hell of a side.
Alistair Cook.
Godfrey Evans.
Alistair Cook. Alistair Cook is in the team, yeah.
W.G. Grace.
No, he's in the second team.
Ian Botham.
Ian Botham's in the first team, yeah.
Godfrey Evans.
No.
Andrew Flintoff.
No.
Eric Randall.
No.
Alan Knott.
Alan Knott is the keeper ahead of the other English keepers.
Peterson.
Peterson is in there, yes.
Graham
Dowse.
Gooch.
Dowse.
Gooch is in the second team, I think. I'll tell you the others. Gower's in the greatest, and Willis and Swan
Graham Swan.
ahead of Laker. Anyway, just a bit of fun. It's all subjective, but that was what it was. It's a big honour for Joe Root. In between test matches that year, I met Joe in Meadowhall. Completely random meeting. And he came towards me, and I didn't really recognise him at first. And he just gave that big smile, and he just had a quick chat about Yorkshire and England. And it was a great relief not to be shopping at the time. So that is just, things happen, don't they? Right, South Africa. Last year, I was lucky enough to go to South Africa. I went with my partner, Christy, and we went to the 3 ODIs, and I met up with Joe in Durban. And I was able to ask him a favour, which he was to support Tony Curry's baby granddaughter, who's very ill, and sign a few things, which have subsequently raised a lot of money for her fund. And that was taken by one of my colleagues on the tour. And he's just going into the nets, and we're having a laugh and a chat. And he took so much trouble over signing that correctly. He was signing the World Cup shirt, which has, as I say, made a lot of money. He's such a nice fella. He's so modest and so generous. And so I share that with you. And when I got back, Matt Root had donated that signed print, limited edition print of his son. And that's also raised quite a lot of money for Olivia. So In recent weeks this year, in Sri Lanka, Joe scored his 18th and 19th centuries. In the second innings of the test, he overtook which English batsman to become England's 4th highest test match run scorer of all
Yeah.
time? This is in Sri Lanka.
Alex Stewart.
No.
David
Gower.
Gower.
Both
David Gower. David Gower. Yeah.
of them.
Not both of them, no. David, it went over David Gower.
Gooch.
No.
Oh, I thought he went over 3 players.
It went over 3. It went over 3 to become the 4th. This is in Sri Lanka.
Cowdrey,
No.
Barrington,
No. I'll give you a clue.
Oh,
This is runs, total runs.
Boycott.
Boycott. It went over Jeff. It went over Kevin Peterson. It went over Gower. And when he left Sri Lanka, he was the 4th highest run scorer of all time for England. Well, this week, he played his 100th test, as I think most of us know, and he became only the 9th player in history to score a century in his 100th test match. Now, there were 2 other England players in that list.
Boykes.
And can you name the other 2?
Boycott,
No. No. No.
Cowdrey,
Colin Cowdrey in 1968 did it. His 100th match, he got 100 against Australia. And the other one is more
Alistair
modern.
Cook.
Correct. No, sorry. I thought, sorry, you're going to say something else. Sorry. Can I tell you? It's Alex Stewart.
Oh, sorry.
And he got 100. He got 100. Joe now is the only player to get a double century in his 100th match.
Apparently he scored 9% of his runs in the last 4 weeks of his test run.
Could well be.
Chris,
Just
Chris,
yeah. Got loads more to
less
say
than
to
a
you.
minute,
Can't
so we'll continue it next week.
do. Okay.
Is
No problem.
everybody else okay?
Yeah.
Brilliant, that.
So
Very good.
thank
It's
you
not-
for that, Chris. And
He's a brilliant player, but a really nice bloke. And the family are a great family.
yeah, we'll see you all next week. I'll send out the links for people. I hope the
Yeah.
guys from Totley have enjoyed it, and we'll see you
Yeah,
next.
yeah, please, yeah,
Good.
thanks.
Take care,
Yeah.
all.
Take care.